Hello everyone, good evening. Please be seated if you haven't already. Please turn off your cell phones if you haven't already. We're going to go ahead and get started with our program today. My name is Katrina Pereira and I am a professor here at the George Washington University in the Department of Organizational Sciences and Communication. And I have the pleasure of welcoming all of you to the 4th Oral Advocacy Showcase and Competition hosted by the Department of Organizational Sciences and Communication. Sorry, it is a little chilly in here. Last semester it was way too hot in here, so we're trying to get it figured out. Somebody has come, or they are coming to adjust the temperature, so hopefully we'll get a little bit more comfortable, but luckily it'll keep you guys awake. So I would also like to welcome the participants of our showcase, which are all seated up here. These 5 students were selected by their peers in their respective Com 1040 public communication classes, and they also advanced through a round of preliminary judging to make it here today. So at this time, I invite you to join me in welcoming them and congratulating them on this honor. Tonight, our MC is Morgan Matheson. Morgan is a senior in the Columbia College of Arts and Sciences, and as a communication major with a minor in journalism, she is no stranger to public communication. Morgan has participated in a speech contest in high school, and she has also taken the same public communication class that our presenters tonight are enrolled in. She is currently taking a professional communication class with Professor Christine Clapp, who's our timekeeper here today. Professor Clapp reached out to Morgan about helping with this event because of her strong speaking and leadership skills. Tonight she will serve as our Mistress of Ceremonies, and I ask you to join me in welcoming Morgan Matheson.
Thank you, Katrina, for the introduction. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's Oral Advocacy Showcase and Competition. Tonight, we'll hear speeches from 5 students, each representing their respective sections of GW's Public Communications class. In a few moments, I'll introduce our 5 judges and timekeeper. Then our chief judge will brief us on tonight's competition rules, and we'll jump into the speeches. If you're wondering the order of the speakers, it's just been decided, and you can also write it in your programs if you should so wish to. It'll be Benji first, followed by Sean, Fatima, Morgan, and finally Erica. After each speaker, there'll be a brief Q&A for all of you audience members to raise any questions you may have, and then at the end, we'll present tonight's Oral Advocacy Award to our winner. But before we begin tonight's lineup, I'd like to briefly discuss the value of cultivating public communication skills. Here at GW, situated in our nation's capital, we are lucky enough to be exposed to unique resources and culture that set us apart from other college students. Whether it be internship opportunities in a multitude of fields, or the availability of historical archives right at our doorstep, it's undeniable that GW students have the world at their fingertips. As a communication major myself, I may be slightly biased when I say that communication will affect any life path we each choose. Whether it be in the workplace or in our personal experiences, communication will really help follow us through in life. GW communication professors do an excellent job in cultivating these skill sets and reminding their students the importance of showcasing ourselves with poise and a strong belief in our own abilities. The 5 students speaking tonight have excelled in this area and will show us the power and persuasiveness of one's voice. Please join me in a round of applause in congratulating our 5 speakers for being selected to compete tonight. At this point, I'd like to introduce our timekeeper and 5 judges. Christine Clapp, our timekeeper for this evening, knows the benefit of speaking skills all too well. Not only does she teach both public comm and comm theory, but in 2008, she started her own communication firm, Spoken with Authority, which specializes in developing the voice of experts in the hopes of broadening their impact. With her hands-on experience in the field, Professor Clapp is an asset to this competition. Now on to the judges. Our first judge, Dr. Mina Liu, who serves as Associate Professor of Communication, has an exceedingly impressive resume spanning over 20 publications in some of the communications field's most esteemed journals. After leaving the University of Maryland after 8 years, GW is very glad to have her as part of the community. Next, we have Dr. Diane Klein, Associate Professor of History. Dr. Klein is an ancient Greek historian with a passion for bridging different diverse backgrounds, shown by her commitment as Director of the Cross-Disciplinary Collaboration. Her current research focus applies social network analysis to the study of ancient history while still making time to play the cello for both the Washington Sinfonetta and the Avanti Orchestra. Our third judge, David Garr, is a senior campaign finance analyst for the Federal Election Commission and a native of the DC area. He has a background in many areas, including work in newsrooms, crisis PR firms, and in political survey research. At his current work at the Federal Election Commission, he relays complex policy and regulations to the public. Our fourth judge, Professor Laser, Assistant Professor of Media and Public Affairs, has devoted much of her life to the research of the transforming world of digital media, and her unique background has given her the ability to study today's media environment through multiple lenses. Here at GW, Dr. Laser teaches classes in media theory, social media, and journalism studies, bringing her hands-on experience to the classroom. And last but not least, our esteemed and fifth judge, who will also be our chief judge for this evening, is Mr. Barry Pyatt. He's a professorial lecturer in the Department of Organizational Sciences and a recently retired communications director on Capitol Hill. Mr. Pyatt has immense experience in the public communication field after working on the Hill for over 30 years as senior advisor and communications director for the Democratic Policy Committee. In addition, he was a past district governor for Toastmasters International, a nonprofit that specializes in improving speaking skills and leadership skills. Given his impressive and relevant experience, and being a GW alum, it is my honor to present tonight's chief judge, Mr. Barry Pyatt.
Thank you very much, Madam Contest Master, students, faculty, and honored guests. Every contest has rules, and this contest is no different. We're going to talk about some of those rules here for both the contestants and for the audience, because there are rules for the audience as well. First of all, the judges for this contest have been briefed in detail on contest rules tonight. So let me go to some of the other practical items. Number one, these speeches are 7 to 9 minutes. And the speakers will see timing cards that I suspect many of you see in your classrooms. Let's say at 7 minutes, they will see a yellow card that says 7 minutes. At 8 minutes, they will see another yellow card that says 8 minutes. And at 9 minutes, they will see a pink card. I hope I'm getting these colors right. I'm a little colorblind. But anyway, at 9 minutes, they'll see that. There's a 30-second window on either side of that 7 to 9 minutes that they can finish within and still be within the time window. The stage is the speaking area. The contestants have been asked to pretty much stay within the speaking area, but it's a big speaking area. It's pretty much the whole stage. So that is the speaking area. Now, these speeches are also original speeches. They are original speeches. So what if we hear a speech that's not so original? Well, in that case, not that we will, of course, but in that case, contestants and voting judges can protest the speech that they just heard that they think contains more than 25% of borrowed material. That borrowed material can be, in fact must be, cited and sourced, but if it's more than 25%, that could be a problem. So keep in mind that contestants and voting judges are the ones who can file that protest, and they need to do so before the winner is announced. Because if they wait until after the winner is announced, they have a very interesting opinion, but they have no effect on the outcome of the contest. It needs to be done before the winner is announced. Now, here are the rules for the audience. Number one, out of respect to all of the contestants, we ask that you stay for the entire contest. Don't just come and hear your favorite classmate, and then head out. We want to show respect to all of our students who work really hard to get here, and they all deserve our attention. So please remember that. Do not, please, this is one of the rules of our contest, please do not enter or leave the room while someone is speaking. There will be a break between speeches, and you are free to leave, to go to the restroom and get a drink or something if you need to do that during that break, but not while someone is speaking. That's when you do that. Finally, there will be 1 minute of silence between the speeches. Did I understand that right, Madam Contest Minister? There will be 1 minute of silence between the speeches in which the judges will mark their ballot. And let's just do a little demonstration of that. I would like to ask everyone in the audience to turn to their neighbor and whisper something right now. Go. See, that's what silence does not sound like. And so, whispering to your neighbor is not silence. Please keep silent during that time so that our judges have no interruptions when they are marking their ballot. And finally, it's been mentioned before, turn off your cell phones. You do not want to be the one while someone is giving one of the most important speeches of their life to have the speech interrupted by your phone blaring Bohemian Rhapsody throughout this auditorium. So take just a moment and make sure your phone is off. You don't know how many times it's happened that someone was certain their phone was off until it rang. With that, that concludes my briefing, and I am happy to welcome our contest master back to the stage.
All right, it's finally time for the speeches. First up, we have Benji Englander, who will be giving his speech. They should have brought the Knicks. Let's welcome Benji. Wow.
What would you buy with $7 billion? You could get a couple hundred Ferraris, a private island or two, the Boeing 787, and the New York Knicks. Not that anybody would want them. Or you could get absolutely nothing, which is what the donors of the 2012 election cycle found out. The FEC reported that $7 billion was spent in that election, that the balance of government didn't change one bit. President Obama was reelected, as were 90% of congressmen and senators. As a campaign volunteer during that cycle, I witnessed firsthand the outsized impact of money on an election. The less than 10% of Americans donate to political campaigns, 100% live in the country formed through these contributions. Over the last decade, campaign finance regulations have continuously been struck down, leaving an altered political landscape that threatens the very essence of our democracy. So today, let's examine the history of campaign finance laws before looking at the enormous effects money is having on politics. Only then can we contemplate some solutions to retake our democracy and get money out of politics. Big money threatens the entire structure of American government. This country was founded on the idea that every citizen's voice matters. Today, due to our system that's way more broken than the internet after Kim Kardashian's magazine cover, that's no longer the case. However, campaign finance is not a new issue. Way back in the 19th century, Congress first sought to limit the ability of civil service workers to donate to campaigns. And in 1907, it actually became illegal for corporations to donate to campaigns. But in 1976, the Supreme Court ruled in their landmark Buckley v. Valero case that limits on political donations violated the First Amendment. Since then, there has been, in the words of the Washington Washington Post, Jamie Fuller, on April 3rd, 2014, a steady unraveling of campaign finance laws. The McCain-Feingold Act of 2002 sought to reverse this trend, but in 2010, the Supreme Court dropped the bombshell. In Citizens United v. FEC, the court ruled that unlimited expenditures by corporations were protected as free speech. As a result, according to the Washington Post on January 22nd, 2014, 3 times as much money was spent on the 2010 midterms post-Citizens United as compared to the 2006 midterms that happened before the court's ruling. This influx of money into American politics has completely changed the ballgame, leaving the average citizen on the outskirts of the political process. Simply put, big money often leads to a big election win. As Darrell West of the Brookings Institute noted on August 15, 2015, during a time of rising campaign costs and limited public engagement in the political process, big money sets the agenda, affects how the campaign develops, and shapes how particular people and policy are viewed. The skyrocketing entry costs to simply run for office have crushed the dream that anybody can be president. At the same time that total contributions are going up, the amount of donors is actually trending downwards. According to the Washington Post on February 18, 2014, there has been a nearly 20% decline in total donors to candidates in just 4 years. This means that in a country that prides itself on having every citizen's voice heard, less and less are actually getting their message across. Our Constitution is designed to limit the influence of the wealthy, what Madison called the most dangerous faction. But thanks to a rash of court rulings that have opened the floodgates of campaign contributions, the center of power has shifted away from the common person and towards the elite. In order to limit the influence of these big donors, we need to incentivize politicians to seek small donors in large numbers. In a system run amok, the obvious thing to do would be to simply set a cap on the total amount of contributions. But the Supreme Court continues to rule such limits as unconstitutional. In lieu of a constitutional amendment, we must fight fire with fire. But instead of the money coming from a handful of donors, the entire country must get in the game. Like it or not, and I don't, money is speech. So to encourage even the lowest income Americans to get their voices heard, there should be a tax or rebate on small amounts of political contributions. According to Lawrence Lessig, a proponent of this proposal in the New York Times on November 11, 2014, these democracy vouchers can then be given to candidates on one condition, that they only accept these democracy vouchers or campaign donations capped at $100. Another proposal is for a government matching system, similar to the one already in place in New York City and Maine. Candidates would agree to raise at least $50,000 from individual donors, and the government would match these donations 6 to 1. Although not as direct as landing a gyrocopter on the lawn of the Capitol building and delivering letters to congressmen, these plans are effective. The 535 senators and representatives should be beholden to their constituents, not their donors. Creating this reality requires a concerted effort on our part to push for new campaign finance regulations that promote behavior that is in line with this country's founding values. If the necessary action is taken now, we can avoid a complete collapse of republicanism. By incentivizing candidates to broaden their array of donors, we can get people involved in politics. It's no secret that political engagement is decreasing at an alarming rate. But this is because activism doesn't seem to matter in the face of billions of dollars. By removing money from the equation, we can, as the previously cited Lessig argued, weaken the power of the very few, and thereby allow even the lowest citizens to affect change. On the contrary, the absence of these measures will only precipitate the downfall of democracy. Professors Martin Gillens and Benjamin Page argued in the journal Perspectives on Politics in September 2014 that as things stand, The majority does not rule, at least not in the causal sense of actually impacting policy outcomes. The elites, more often than not, get what they want because they can buy votes through campaign contributions. This failure of American government has only one end: a permanent aristocracy. That leaves no seat at the table for us here in this room. If we continue down the current trend, the very ideals this nation stands for, equality, representation, freedom, will be no more. And it doesn't have to be like that. We can preserve these principles and in true American spirit, stand up for what we believe in. I could ask you to close your eyes and imagine a world where your opinion doesn't really matter. But I won't, because no imagining is necessary. Today, the outside influence of money in politics has rendered those who cannot afford to write million-dollar checks politically irrelevant. American politics has undergone a paradigm shift in the last half-decade. As each election cycle sets a new spending record, the very essence of what it means to live in America hangs in the balance. While you may not have a sports team, a private jet with gyrocopter, or even a lousy basketball team, you do have a voice. Make it happen.
Questions from the audience? Sorry, I take that back. We're going to wait a minute.
That gives everyone time to think of a question. All right, I think that was about 1 minute. Does anyone have any questions for Benji? All right, luckily, Benji, I have a question for you.
Sounds good.
You mentioned that in today's political climate, money is speech, and I was wondering if you think that the voice of everyday citizens is going to continue to decline, or if there's any prospect for future change.
I think that at the current rate, the voice of average citizens isn't getting their message across. And the ability of you and me and everybody here, for that matter, is on the downswing. But it doesn't have to be like that, because the very essence of America is about citizens getting their voice heard and impacting change. So if enough people band together, then we can do great things and hopefully change this system to make it more in line with what this country should stand for.
Excellent response. I think Professor Clapp has a question.
Do you support the limits on candidate spending that GW has put on students who are running for student government?
I think that that's a good idea. I think that, GW tries really hard to mirror our student government system off the American government, but I think one place is where we do better is setting that cap. Because not everybody can afford to spend thousands of dollars on their campaign. There's certainly some very wealthy people that go to GW that could afford to outspend the competition. So in order to make this race really about the issues, I do in fact support those limits.
All right, thank you so much, Benji.
Thank you.